Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the December version of the Post Falls Urban Renewal Commission meeting. It is Thursday, December 17th, 2020. I'd like to welcome all of you there. I'd like to call the meeting to order and ask Director Fountain if she would call the roll, please.
Baltzell.
Here.
Carstensen.
Here.
Crosby.
Here.
Coles.
Here.
Davis.
Here.
Clemenson.
Here.
And we are waiting for Christy Fleshman to join us via Zoom. There she is. Christy.
Here.
Good morning, Christy and Eric. That's great. Okay, would you all rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance led by Glenn Crosby?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much, Lynn, and everybody, and again, welcome. We have a special thing here we just heard about this past few days about Commissioner Crosby. He's been selected to represent all of the veterans of the state of Idaho at a special veteran celebration in, I think, Washington, D.C. Before too long. So there's a lot of veterans in the state of Idaho, and he's the number one guy that's going to represent all of us. So congratulations, Lynn.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, I don't know that there are any other ceremonies or appointments or announcements that need to be made. Anybody have anything? Okay, move on. Conflict disclosure. Do any of the commissioners have anything on the agenda that they have conflict with today? It looks like that's no. Okay, move on to the consent calendar. Dan?
Thank you. Item A in the consent calendar is the commission workshop minutes of November 18th. Item B is the payables for this month totaling $1,877,128.34, which includes a payment to the City of Post Falls in the amount of $1,868,687.92 for the sewer improvements that the Urban Renewal Agency is funding in the East Post Falls District.
Okay.
Item C is the bank activity report, which shows total in all funds of $5,937,931.44 and accrued interest for the month of $2,201.33. Item D is the financial reports as of November 30th. Your approval of the consent calendar will authorize a transfer of $2,201.33 accrued interest to the general fund and transfer to the First Interstate Bank checking account $1,877,128.34 for the payables. And I would answer any questions.
Any questions on the consent calendar items? It does not appear that way. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent calendar as presented.
I'd make a motion to present, excuse me, to approve the consent calendar.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Coles.
Aye.
Davis.
Aye.
Baltzell.
Aye.
Carstensen.
Aye.
Crosby.
Aye.
Fleshman.
Aye.
Clemenson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, very good. Motion has been approved. Committee updates, finance and policy. Commissioner Crosby, please.
Finance Committee reviewed and approved the November statements, which were just presented to the Commission. Also of note, the audit team composed of our outside auditors, have completed their review, and we expect the audit for the year ending September 30th of 2020 to be available for the Commission at its July meeting? January meeting. January meeting.
Okay, very good, thank you. District review, Commissioner Coles.
I have nothing new this morning.
Okay. And communications, property and personnel, Commissioner Carstensen.
We have nothing new this morning.
We have something new, we have you back.
Well, yeah.
That's
Glad to be
a
here.
good deal. Glad you're well and getting better. Hey, citizen comments. This section of the agenda is reserved for citizens wishing to address the commission regarding an agency-related issue. Comments related to future public hearings should be held for that public hearing, and persons wishing to speak will have 5 minutes. Are any visitors? And some of you aren't visitors, but it's okay. I don't think we have any citizen comments today. Okay, next on our agenda is a presentation by Gynii Gilliam, Coeur d'Alene Economic Development Council. Welcome.
So I was just telling Diane that I noticed that I changed a whole lot of things on this slide except for the title page. You know how you always take an older, and then you move forward.
For the record, would you please state your name and who you represent?
Yes, I am Gynii Gilliam, the President and CEO of the Coeur d'Alene Area Economic Development Corporation.
Thank you.
And sorry about forgetting to change that. So what we do as an organization is we help build a strong economy by diversifying the economy, making sure that wages are much better than they have been in the past, and then also to make sure that we're regionally partnered together on everything that we're doing. Okay. We were established in 1987. I will tell you who some of those people are when we get down to the how we're funded part. What the founding fathers of the organization did is they wanted to make sure that in 1987 we were pretty reliant on resource-based industries, so ag, timber, and mining. And the leaders of the community, so it was the mayor, Jacqueline's, Hagedon, Knudsen, just several people in town. They decided that if we didn't do something, we're going to go by the wayside like every other beautiful rural community. So they established Jobs Plus, and we are still legally Jobs Plus. We just, easier to say Coeur d'Alene Area EDC because then it ties into what we do, okay? So, there's been a lot of things going on, and now it's our turn to continue to what these organizations and what these individuals did. So our board of directors is huge. There's 25 that are actual voting members, and there's 3 ex officios. The mayors are there, the city admins are there, we have Hagedon, the commissioners are there, we have all the education programs as well, and then we have about 10 business representatives. And we try to find the representatives on the industries where we're very strong. Okay. And then we do everything with our partners. Economic development is basically a team sport. Can't do it by ourselves. Some of you probably got the announcement that we have a company coming. That did not happen with 3 people in the office. That happened with the NIC, with the city, with workforce development, with the mayors. It just involves everybody in the community to make it happen. And this is just a sampling of who some of our partners are. And so this one, Diana and I were talking, and she said to explain this part a little bit. So we get leads from different places. So Department of Commerce gives us some leads. Site selectors call us up. Site selectors are basically big commercial real estate brokerage houses, big ones across the U.S. The big companies come over to them and they ask them, can you find me a new location? Okay, but lately, a lot of our leads, I'm going to say 70% of our leads are calling directly into the office. When our population was rising pretty regularly prior to the pandemic, we were in the national news a lot because Idaho was either 1 or 2 as far as growth, and we were either 1 or 2 with Boise as far as the fastest growing metro within the state of Idaho. There were several times we were the fastest growing metro in the state of Idaho, while Idaho was the fastest growing state in the United States. And those 3-4 years where we were in the national news constantly, a lot of the site selectors, a lot of companies were going, hey, what's with that? What's with that community? They look us up, they see that we have several other big industry businesses here. And so we've been getting a lot of direct calls from those companies. So we get the leads, We submit what we call, they request for information. We submit a big proposal. It's all electronic now because that way we can attach all the information that the realtors give to us. We can link them to everything in sight. So we put it all in a Dropbox, and then they pick it up on their end. Saves a lot on paper, I can tell you guys that. So anyway, so once they get that, they usually review all the information. And again, we don't put that information by ourselves. A lot of times if the location, because they will give us a parameter of what they're looking for. They'll say, we are going to need anywhere from 5 acres to 150 to 300 acres. We're going to have anywhere from 10 people to 350 people, and they give us all these parameters. So we look for the different properties that we have in the community that have that. If there's some questions that we have for the city, we get to Shelley and we find out what it is that's available. If we're probably going to be in an urban renewal district, I'll call Diane. If workforce, which is usually a big thing for a lot of the companies. If workforce is a big deal, we're going to ask NIC, what are the programs that we have that will address this company's concerns? We send all that to them. They usually will ask us a few more questions. I mean, in spite of the fact that that's a whole lot of information, there's still something that they will want detail on. Hey, we really like this information. Can you give us further detail? So we'll get some more information. That'll go back and forth 3 or 4 times, and then they'll finally come over for a site visit. And it isn't just one site visit. They'll come back again, So the first team will come back just to see what the sites look like. Then they'll come back again, and they'll bring their financial officer. Next time they'll come back, they'll bring their human resources officer. They just kind of keep bringing people in as they keep moving forward. The announcement that happened yesterday, even through the pandemic, and they were so good about masks. We used to serve food when they come, and now we have masks. We have sanitizers, we have wipes is what we have. And then we only have the bars so that they're all individuals. We don't do the donuts and even when we treat them to lunch, we come and eat in the office and I order boxed lunches just to make everything safer for everybody as opposed to going out. So when they finally come for a site visit, so Metal Quest came, I'm going to say about 4 times just over the last few months because he wanted to make sure that the people that were going to move with him are going to like our area. And then they talked to a couple of realtors to find out what homes are looking like, where are they available, because as you all know, we don't really have a whole lot of homes that are available. So when that happens several times, and then when we get an announcement, then we do the Snoopy Happy Dance. That's why he's up there with Woodstock. And then what our services are is we do a lot of that gathering data for them. We provide them with a lot of data sets. We provide them with connections to the community. If they need to talk to Shelley's team, we introduce them to Shelley, and then Shelley introduces them, to the rest of her team. So the reason we do all this is right now we need some pandemic recovery, of course. So we're continuing to work with that, with all the new jobs and businesses. It gives us funds because they bring capital investment into the area, so it gives us funds for infrastructure, for education, for all sorts of different things that we need. Higher and better wages is always something that we're working on. Our minimum wage, I believe, in the state of Idaho is still $7.50,
$7.25.
something, right. But usually a lot of our incentives in the state and even locally, they don't kick in unless they're either at our state average, which, thank goodness, what they use for state average is like $17.50. Our average in the region is actually about $19.70 right now. It would be really hard for us to push everybody to that almost $20 mark. So we're kind of happy that they're leaving it at that $7.50, $17, and we can keep pushing people to just, if you average that number, we can kick in a lot of the incentives for you, and they've been really good about it. And then we want to make sure we are economically diverse so that we can continue to survive through whether it was the recession in 2007 or this pandemic, and there's a little light at the end of the tunnel. We've got vaccines, and so hopefully next year we'll sort of be kind of normal, right? So, and these are our industry focuses, so it's manufacturing. Aerospace and aviation is still a very big deal. Warehousing and distribution is getting to be bigger and bigger. Orgel came here because they needed a sixth location. That's the one that took over the Kimball facility. They wanted to be able to serve the Northwest, which continues to grow, and they also wanted to serve the Canadian provinces in the Southwest. And so we're an ideal spot for that. We've got I-90, US 95 coming right through our communities. So access north, south, east, west is pretty easy. Health services and information technology, those two industries are growing across the board, across the United States. A lot of it has to do is we're all getting older. And there seems to be a whole lot of us. And I just read an article last night that instead of a baby boom, we are down something like 500,000 in some areas as far as babies. And that's going to have a repercussion to that class, whatever that age group is. Professional services has continued to grow here. And of course, tourism and recreation is a pretty big deal in our community. So 2019, and I did 2019 because 2020, there were so many iffy things happening. There were a lot of projects that we were working on. And a lot of them, we've been working with Scott for a while. And now you just heard his announcement. And a lot of that has to do with when the pandemic hit, everybody just kind of went into survival mode. Although the surprising thing is after that initial 2 months of survival mode, we were getting inundated with phone calls. So we have had like probably 40 new projects just since April. I'm not saying they're all good or that they're all going to materialize into something, but we've had 40 requests for information just since April. And that doesn't count the ones that we were working with prior to 2020. So 120 direct jobs, 25 million capital investment to our community. Again, those go into roads and education and so forth. 5 million estimated payroll for the people that are going to be hired. So it's 5 companies. Standcraft is one of them, and I believe there were quite a few of you that were there when we did the Standcraft Dauntless announcement, where the Dauntless flew their firefighting plane and dumped water, and everyone ooh, ah, because it was pretty amazing. I was totally impressed. I mean, I saw the pictures, but when you see it in front of you, it was downright amazing. So project updates, like I told you, there's been 40-plus relocation projects just from this year. 30 from April, and then we carried over 10. Existing business expansions out of that batch. And then we had 5 applied for the state TRI, which is the tax reimbursement incentive. There's a local match to that. One of them made an announcement yesterday, and we're hoping the other 4 will make an announcement. Was it 18, right? 18 and 19. We were working with Post Falls on a project that was going to turn into 3. 2 of them are building. So we're thinking that they wouldn't be building unless the number one was going to be coming in, although they haven't told us a definite yes, but I think it's going to turn out that way. There's just some details that we still need to work out. And it was a long-term project for that one. We knew it wasn't going to happen, and then it'll probably take them 2 years to move. Okay. Looking forward, we have a lot of challenges, but there's also a lot of good things that are happening. Like I told you, lots of good leads. The biggest challenge, of course, are dealing with the COVID-19 impacts to the region, social, economic, racial justice. Maybe we don't have as much racial justice here, but we have some economic and social. We have everything looks wonderful in our community, but we have 15% below the poverty line. We have another 25% in the Alice population. So I know that our organization is always working very hard to make sure that we get those wages up and higher. Challenges that we've had even prior to this is that we are short on available sites. We have a lot of property, but we have no actual available facilities. We don't have as much talent in the area. It's that Project Feather that we were talking about. We must have worked like crazy to try to get that project here. And the last article we all read, we're not in that top 3 cut. So, but they haven't officially told us no yet. So I haven't actually given up yet. I don't, But their biggest deal was they were going to need almost 7,000 people. And they just don't think we can produce, 5,000 to 7,000 people. I even put together a whole PowerPoint, because where Tesla is, the Gigafactory, it is a smaller community than us. I understand that they're only 6 hours away from Sacramento, so there's a whole lot of people there. But we even put together that they're smaller than us, that there are other metros that are smaller than the combined Spokane metro. We talked about the workforce, we talked about the education, I think the schools within a 2-hour, 3-hour circle of our area. They liked what they saw on that information, but we're so worried about whether they can fulfill the numbers that they need long-term. I think short-term, we could have done it, but they were worried about, we talked about the immigration into the area. We talked about everything that we could think of that said, we have people coming into the area, and if you come, we will probably get even more people into the area. So I haven't given up yet. We will continue to keep trying to work with them. And then, as you all know, affordable housing is an issue. Quantity is an issue. We don't even have enough homes to be able to sell. Although one of the nice things about that one is we are working with our developers to make sure that they're building homes within a particular price range. As far as the COVID thing, we pivoted and adapted like everybody else very quickly. We spent the first few months very focused on making sure that we retain as many businesses as we can in the area. We tried to help our manufacturer find new supply chains so that they can continue to function. All in all, I'm not saying that they're soaring or anything like that. All in all, our manufacturing actually held up pretty darn well. Even our aerospace industry. And a lot of that is because our aerospace industry suppliers, they not only supply to the aerospace industry, they supply to other industries as well. And because medical manufacturers were very busy, the precision that it takes to have aerospace manufacturing kind of matches the medical, so they were able to pivot and provide for some of those companies. We are going to continue to help build up health and technology in the area. We're going to market the region virtually. For some of you that watched our annual, we are getting ready. Well, we put a teaser video, and that one we kind of put together really quickly. We're going to make it better so that the pictures you see will all be local, as opposed to the stock photo that some of you probably saw when we had our thing. One of the things that we might deal with is there might be some stalled growth. A lot of economists are saying that near the tail end of the third and fourth quarter should probably be better, but everybody's really worried about the front 6 months of 2021, especially a lot of the small businesses that have been struggling. So we might have some stalled growth. I have not seen it, frankly, to tell you guys the truth, and I don't think our realtors have seen it as well. But you always plan for the worst, so we want to make sure that we're ready if there's some stalled growth that are going to be happening. But these big challenges, they always give us some big transformational opportunities. In 1987, there were some transformational opportunities. We went from resource-based to more diverse economy, and so now we want to do some transformational opportunities in the health and in the technical industry. We have a lot of capacity. Our health industry, of course, is at odds at the moment as well because of all the things that they're having to deal with. Danny Klocko sits on the board, and then Jeremy just gave us a report, and he said the staff and the medical teams are just stressed. They're asking them all to work extra time, so they'll work their full shift plus another shift. And it's mentally exhausting. I have a son that's an ER nurse, and he said, you're trained to address all of this, but not at the numbers that they're coming in. You know, you're trained to deal with death, but not when it's every day you go in and every day you go home and somebody died and all those things. So he said it's just taking a mental toll on the whole team. So I think the fact that we have a vaccine, I think everybody's just kind of sighing a little bit. My nurse son will get his shot sometime this weekend, and I am so thankful because we've been worried about him, of course, since this whole thing started. It's like I was telling Jamie, they're not supposed to go into emergency, but that's not what people do. So every day, what they do now is the good thing is they at least have N95s. They still are not disposable like they're supposed to be. They're supposed to be worn once, you're supposed to throw them away. What they do now is they wear their N95s, and then they wear a surgical mask on top of that to protect the N95, not, because they have enough protection from the N95. And then like Michael says, every week when I first go in, I will get 6 masks. I'm supposed to rotate those for the whole week. And then they give us tons of surgical masks, and then they have goggles, they have the face shields, they have their gowns, and then they have their gloves. And he says, so I get a little excited when people complain about a little cloth mask, because I'm practically saran wrapped. All of us in emergency are practically saran wrapped all day long, and people complain about a little cloth mask. He says, when we're working on someone, you can see sweat falling into people's headgear or the face shield, because it's just hot. Normally, even in emergency, they can wear the cloth ones that are kind of waterproof. But to protect them, really protect them this time, they're all in the plastic gowns and everything else. And he says, you're just sweating up a storm all day long. And then you have to be careful because you only have that one gown that day. So you have, when you take it off, you have to be careful that you don't touch any part of the outside. So he says, and Danny said they also have enough supplies, except they don't have the back stock like they normally have at the basement. And he said that kind of worries us. But we've been able to keep up with them coming in, getting used. We want that stock again, because it just makes everybody feel better to have that stock. So I think some of the problems and the solutions I've already talked about. We do always do a regional focus, because together we have 730,000 people. If I only talked about the Kootenai County population is 200,000, so that number looks bigger. And it is bigger, and it makes sense because there is a lot of cross traffic as far as work is concerned. There's also 357, 902 workforce in the joint area. And this is just Spokane and Kootenai. We're not counting all the rural communities. If we count all the rural communities adjacent to both of us, we have almost 1 million, okay, between everybody. And we know that, for instance, Sandpoint comes down to us. So we try to make sure we always talk about us as a region, and even Spokane talks about us as a region, because that 1 million mark makes a difference to a lot of companies. They know that there's that much more people. An example of that is we put together the I-90 conference. We are going to go ahead. We canceled last year. We're going to have one this coming year. It's in the first week of June. We think maybe we can have it. We're not sure yet. Kathy's giving us until the end of the month, next month, to decide whether we're a go, no go on those dates, and then we'll see what happens. And then we want to make sure we're also doing entrepreneurial support, whether it's through the venture network at NIC, company innovations, anything at all related to that would be really good. Educational support. So that is so critical, because that's what's creating our workforce pipeline. So whether it's the KTAC, whether it's Parker, NIC workforce training, the Idaho Co-op, and we highlight a lot of these things. One of the things that Project Feather was very impressed about was Parker Center. They said nowhere else have we gone that there is a Parker Center. So we held our meetings there, just to keep reminding him, you're already here, we're in your backyard, we can do this, right? And then recovery plans, we did some immediate response, but we're also continuing to make sure all our anchor institutions are in good shape. We continue to send out the COVID information sheet, and that just gives a lot of resources for everybody, whether it's new legislation. It also provides some new sourcing for our manufacturers. So if they're looking for new suppliers, if they're looking for a new supply chain, there's a lot of links that we've been able to find with our partners. Vision for the future, we want to make sure we increase economic diversity and activity in the area. We want to make sure we have more advanced educational opportunities, and we want to encourage all the forward-thinking, future planning that's already ongoing. And we don't have to do much encouraging because it's just already happening. All 4 cities just did their comp plans. The county did one as well. The hospital was doing one, and I'm sure we're all going to have to redo it because of the COVID, the pandemic that's hit us, and we have to make some adjustments. But there's a lot of forward-thinking, future planning that goes on in this community, and that's reflective of getting us to where we are. So I always do a call to action when I do that, and I am just encouraging everybody, wear a mask, especially now, we are so close, okay? If we can keep our hospital from getting completely inundated, as I'm sure you've all been reading in some cities, they've got nurses now, instead of 2 to 1, they're now doing 4 to 1, which means they can't take care of them as well. We're even in a worse situation than the spring, because in the spring, the West Coast was not as busy, and they went to New York to help. We don't have enough nurses to go anywhere. So we can put up all the beds we want, but we don't have the staff to take care of people. Like Michael said, they start doing it's like wartime. They have to just decide who's going to survive the best, and that's who they treat. And there's just, it's sad to think that, but those are some of the decisions that are being made across the country. So if everybody will just wear a mask just for a little bit longer, we should be able to do this. And then, of course, we always encourage everybody to stay engaged, which a lot of the people in this room already are. And then if you are aware of any business and industry that needs help, please give us a call. We can at least send them to the right entities so that they can help them. So any questions?
Jenny, I just want to say thank you to you and your staff and your board. You guys have done a great job. You've pivoted, as you said, and focused on retention when we needed that. We've had 3 of our urban and rural districts benefit from our combined work to get
Yes.
in, Buck Knives and ALK Abeo and a number of other industries. And we also feel like you've done an excellent job connecting the employers to the educational system so that the educational system understands better what the employers need from their workforce coming out of the schools. And so I just think you've done a wonderful job. My question is, what are the majority of the inquiries you're getting now? Where are they coming from? Are they coming from tech, light manufacturing, retail?
So they're coming in manufacturing. We're also getting a lot of technology. They're coming in from actually a lot of the coastal cities. So the 5 that we're working on, so MetalQuest came out of Nebraska, Nebraska, out of all places, right? They just wanted to come out here, and they're actually going to partner with one of our communities, and they will temporarily be at Riverbend. They'll be leasing space there, and then they're building one at Bighorn, the one that they own. And then the 2 of them are out of Southern California. One is in Washington. These are the ones, the last 5 that just did like Seattle area. And then the other one is Washington across the river from the college. So they're definitely, and a lot of the calls are definitely coming in from the coastal cities. We get an occasional call from the middle part of the United States, but for the most part, it's for us, it's the coastal cities that come over here.
Thank you.
And then they come here because, so the change, of course, especially with the COVID, these really just happened. One of them we were working with prior to COVID, but the bulk of them just happened in the last 9 months. They're coming here because they had been thinking about moving anyway, and then I think the pandemic just kind of moved that along forward a lot faster because they know that, it's a smaller community. They wanted to move anyway. They see that we're still succeeding. And I think if you've heard from other economists, you'll hear that the Northwest actually did fairly well compared to other regions of the United States in terms of impact of COVID. It's not great, but we've done better than other communities. So there's still a lot of work that we need to do to put everything back to where it was. So anyway, okay, any other questions?
Yeah, thanks again for coming. I appreciate the information sharing with us. Do you think that the education, workforce training facilities and capability that we have today are able to adapt quickly enough to meet the needs as the technology's changing with these new businesses? Because it changes quickly, and
Yes.
I don't know, I'm not confident that the
So
educational system can
yeah.
adjust quick enough to.
So NIC does pretty well. If the program itself can't move as quickly, workforce development can. So between the different parts of the college, it works really well. They're aware, because they work so closely with business, they're aware that equipment changes really quickly. They need to make sure this new company wants to partner with NIC so that they can bring some people into their facility. They have some machine, they have one machine that's like $8 million. Okay, and it's, what they do is they're really a CNC machining, except they do bulk. So instead of sending it off to China, you can send it to them. So we've actually connected them with other CNC operators in the area. And for them, they said their weakness is the prototyping. So one of our local ones, Romney in Motion, is going to be a very good partner for them, because Romney does a lot of prototyping, a lot of small quantities. And then after he prototypes and it needs to be larger quantity, they usually sub it out. Well, the whole idea is it'll now go to MetalQuest. And MetalQuest, on the other hand, has a lot of big companies that they work with, but they need somebody that prototypes. So that partnership would work well. And so companies like them, companies like Ground Force, we have some ATC. A lot of those companies work very tightly with NIC, and they try to make sure that the equipment that we have, even if we don't have the most up-to-date equipment, they will let them come to their facilities. Buck Knives is the same way. They work very closely. On the technology side, they are teaching more tech classes. And you guys know that Charles Buck was able to get us a bachelor's program in partnership with NIC the first 2 years. And those are the programs that we need. The hospital itself will need about 80 to 100 tech people because they now have the Epic, what is that called? It's the medical information program that they have. There's an actual official name for it that I can't think of it right now, but Epic is the program that they use, and they need 80 to 100 people that are trained in technology. So these are like probably Bachelor of Science, or at least 2 years with an additional 4 years of work, and they pay really well. So those are the kinds of things that we're looking for in the area, are companies that pay well. We want to make sure that we try to encourage them to hit the $20 mark. Anybody that comes to the area that thinks they can pay under $10, we pretty much tell them they will have a very hard time trying to find labor. And because there's still companies that want to come here because they think they can underpay people, and that is really not what we're after. We want them to come here. We want them to give our population good employment opportunities, good upward mobility, just all the different things to make life easier for everybody and better.
Thank
Okay.
you very much.
Okay?
Any other questions? Well, thank you again for coming and providing us.
Thank you for the
this
invitation.
wonderful presentation, and keep up the good work, and let us know if there's anything at all that Urban Renewal in Post Falls can do to help. If you've got somebody on the hook and you're trying to get going, is there anything that we can do as a group working with the city of Post Falls to encourage that? The tech park is really
Yes.
primed to get just rocking and rolling, and if there's help needed there with that, we need to know that so we can try to step up as quickly as possible.
There's been a couple that we've been trying to get there. We've been trying to get that one kick-started. And sometimes it's that first company that you put there that's the hardest, and once somebody sits there, it starts moving a little bit better.
Sure.
So,
I was surprised, I think it's Project Feather, that 3 other states that are nothing like we are moved up ahead of us, so to speak, in terms of consideration when the headquarters is right here.
I know, that's why we try, I mean,
Gee
I don't
whiz, how'd we
know.
lose that one?
We've given them so much information, we've called them up. Like I said, they haven't told me no yet. Usually they'll call me and they'd say, okay, we're narrowing it down, you know, unfortunately, but nobody has called. And there was one other press release on the front end that didn't even mention that they were looking at North Idaho. So I'm hoping it's just one of those things where they just don't even mention us, but it doesn't mean we're out of the running. Because I remember one of the articles on the front end, when they were talking about how they were narrowing it down, they weren't even talking about North Idaho, but they were talking about places in Boise. And I go, well, wait, what happened to us? Did we get left behind already? And we were still in the running. So I'm going, okay, maybe they just forgot us in the press release. We'll see. Okay, and then.
Is there any local influence that,
We have had the governor call, we tried to have the mayor call, we've had friends of them call them. People that are on the board that are friends of people that are, you know, like, that have a C in front of, you know, the CEO, CFO, something in the C-suite. I think we've had everybody that we can think of call the company just to say, if there's something else that you're thinking of that we haven't addressed, please let us know. And I know that their biggest concern, because that's what they kept repeating to me, was that they just were not sure we can fill the long-term employment that they have.
okay, thank you very much.
Okay, thank
Appreciate
you.
it. Thanks for being here. Okay. Next on the agenda is a city staff update on the proposed Pleasant View Urban Renewal District. That would be you, Bob, right?
Yeah, I'm just not, there we are. Good morning. How's it
Morning.
going? Bob Steele, Community Development Director. So I just kind of wanted to give you an update where we were at on the process of establishing the Urban Renewal District, research ahead of time for the Pleasant View corridor. This is a presentation that Welchcomer and Heartland gave to us in late October. It's on the feasibility study. We were looking for a draft of the feasibility study at the time. But they've been, working diligently in order to put together these numbers and try and find something that is going to work. And within this, they basically showed us, hey, here's scenario, 1, 2, and 3, as to how it might develop along the corridor, what it might cost, and what's the most likely scenarios. Well, it focuses on scenario 2, is kind of where we'll go because that's the most likely way it develops. However, with that anticipation, the upfront costs of that were pretty exorbitant. So we are now also looking at an additional alternative that is still under review with Welchcomer, and they're working with city staff in order to try and ferret out the details as to how it might progress. Part of the only things I really changed within the presentation that they provided us is I wanted to show you the actual boundaries that we are currently looking at. So the picture on the left is the red is the original boundary that we were looking at trying to accomplish through the district. The image on the right, Exhibit A, the only real difference is this is the most recent, this is the most current, and this is the boundary that we are working on. What got removed between the two is, well, the transfer station for one, that's the county property. We are working to acquire a 50-foot stretch of land across it, so that it does make it contiguous with the properties to the north. And we also had to remove a piece of land up here in the corner, approximately 80 acres or so of Copper Basin land that is currently under development within the county. It is being developed into 5-acre single-family homes. And I have that map at the very end as well, just for reference if there's any questions and stuff. So again, the corridor that we're familiar with runs north to south, south to north from I-90 to Highway 53. As of this presentation, it was approximately 732 acres of land. We will get updated information on that as we move forward and within the next iteration of this. Wanted to give you this presentation now just so that we're all on the same page, because come January or February, depending upon when we can get that next draft, we'll have the updated information and we'll be able to discuss it with easier and quicker and stuff like that. Just going to kind of roll through some of this stuff. Again, the key stakeholders within this was the transload facility that's located here on the red parcel, the future transload facility. That was kind of the beginning of this process, really starting to look at it. This is a company that wants to come in into the city. They have purchased the property, and they really would like to be able to break ground this year. Honestly, they'd love to break ground in April, where we're doing our best. They're looking at doing a $25 million development project there that includes 3 buildings, approximately I think it was 200,000 to 300,000 square feet. I think it was on the higher end of 300,000 square feet. They will be looking at having upwards of 250 to 300 employees on site permanently, daily, as well as another 1,000 or so that transition through there. Crystal Creek, Copper Basin Properties, which is the green section up in the north. This area does anticipate developing in kind of mixture of residential and commercial or industrial properties. It is called out as residential is what they had put on here for their scenario. However, it is known that the area around the Pleasant View and Prairie intersection area, large areas of that land, we're anticipating the possibility of commercial and industrial development within there. That's what the owner had been looking at previously. The properties to the south along this area are a couple of different owners. We've got Craig Singer and Don Beck, as well as Avista owns the properties through that section. And we do anticipate that those would be going through as industrial type of uses. I did confirm with both the owners, Singer and Beck, yesterday and the day before, that industrial land use seems appropriate to them for the zoning. So that's what we'll be going forward with to the council for recommendation. So the consulting team looked at the different scenarios, estimated the total required infrastructure investment ranges from somewhere between $21.6 million to $31.4 million, depending upon what's developed and how it's developed. They indicated the bare bones, based on the information they had at the time, to activate the transload facility was $8.9 million. And that's this property here. When you get into scenario 2, you'll notice that it's a higher number than that. This all has key assumptions to it, that there's no interior infrastructure to these sites that will be public or reimbursed in the commercial areas. The water and sewer mainline infrastructure will be fully developed per the master plan that we have right now, even if initial phases demand doesn't justify it. Lift station is to be built per the phase demand, unlike the water and sewer mainline. And the school district and transfer station will not be upgraded, so there's no capacity change at that time. So what scenario 1 was looking at was kind of a gradual development from the south to north. We really don't see that happening, so therefore it's kind of just one of those scenarios that kind of got pushed to the side, and we didn't see the need in following out that further, although they did do the numbers for that and looked at it. Scenario 2, this is the one that I was talking about, was kind of looking at most likely development of the transload facility first, followed by the development on the Copper Basin property, and then moving south with 4 and 5, the remainder of the industrial sites. Just kind of looking at those as the possibility as to how it would develop. Scenario 3 was that we would see the residential or the Copper Basin properties develop first, followed by transload, and so on and so forth. When they worked on evaluation for the properties that they see being developed in the future, they looked at industrial as approximately 1.2 to 1.4 million per finished acre, and the residential at about around 1.4 to 1.6. So that's how they started their valuation for determining what the increment, how the increment will grow. Again, the assumptions they made, approximately a 30% lot coverage for industrial, which is higher than the current market average, I guess, which is closer to 20. But that is assuming that we can add a higher intensity development up in there with the water and sewer, with an evaluation of around $90 to $110 per square foot. And then with residential, they were kind of looking at around $350,000 to $400,000 per unit. And I think that some of that cost, as of today, is probably higher per residential unit, but that's the numbers that they're working with. So they kind of looked at some of the cash flows for the scenario 2. If the transload facility was to develop first, they're looking at a $10.1 million infrastructure investment needed to enable the development of the transload facility. That's a lot of money for one company to get online. And that would be building it to the master plan specifications as they exist today. Again, it looked at a construction years for the transload facility of being like 2022, residential going in 2023, further industrial in 2023, and then the public school in 2030. They noted that the initial infrastructure repayment, assuming that the project drive agrees to front the initial infrastructure investment, it would take approximately 9 years to be reimbursed for those infrastructure improvements based on the increment from development in the following years. The risks of this is that the infrastructure that there are higher infrastructure costs. We may see slower residential development and even slower industrial development. So there's concerns with that. The cash flows for Copper Basin. They looked at an additional $11.2 million initial infrastructure investment needed to enable the development of that residential land. Again, it was just focusing on it as residential, is how they call it out, but we anticipate it being mixed up there. Land owned by Copper Basin. Phase 1 and 2, the initial infrastructure investment unlocks that residential area, and phase 3 unlocks a transload. Not sure how they mean that, but sorry. Again, industrial development. Oh, this is scenario B. This is where, sorry, that's why I messed up. This is scenario B, where it was looking as if Copper Basin were the first ones to go. Sorry, I woke up at 5 o'clock this morning and realized I have a presentation to do. So I'm a little tired, actually. I don't usually wake up at that time. Anyways, they looked at how this would kind of progress out if Copper Basin were to be the first to develop, and it was a higher infrastructure cost to get them online, just strictly looking at that one. This kind of shows the district cash flows based on scenario 2, which is the transload facility first, and then Copper Basin, and then the rest of the industrial development to the south. So you see the surplus and deficits as they progress beginning from 2021 through the end of the district. And you can see how the cash flows work in the estimations, upwards of 41 million by the end of 2040. And it does show, that approximate 10-year payback for the infrastructure improvements. So here's the map again. So what we're looking at now is how do we get the Project Drive site, the transload facility site online in order to begin building increment and begin this district starting to turn some kind of cash flow. Their engineer put together a scenario of infrastructure improvements that could get the transload facility online as well as the Copper Basin property to the north. And what that basically entails, just as kind of a baseline, this isn't, is basically working on doing a force main as opposed to a gravity line that would be able to handle the sewer flows from those two major areas. That does basically set it up so that the properties to the south of Project Drive would not be able to tap into that force main, so it's going to require additional infrastructure. It also includes them building wells on their site, which is something that we did need. We do need the wells up north so that we can have a better water circulation. And that would be able to provide the water and sewer to those areas. It also includes building a lift station. I believe they've got a private lift station on the Project Drive site, as well as another lift station that would be public infrastructure. So these are a couple of the pieces that we're starting to tie in to it. And Welch-Comer is currently working on putting together numbers for those infrastructure costs in conjunction with our water and sewer department and the city engineering division. It was felt as if some of the estimations and calculations that were done by their engineer were not quite adequate for what we really felt we needed, and some assumptions were made that we don't necessarily agree with. So that's why they're meeting, and actually, I believe tomorrow, Welch-Comer is meeting with John Beecham and Bill Melvin tomorrow to go over some of these assumptions and determine what it is that needs to actually be developed to handle those two major areas. You're talking about half the district or more right there. Following that, we will also be looking at, okay, so now that we've got those pieces taken care of, what kind of infrastructure do we actually need to handle the rest of it, as well as whatever areas within the basin that we want to have flowing through there. What we're hoping for is reduced costs and sizes of the potential sewer line and water lines that would need to be developed, so that we're not talking about any throwaway infrastructure. That's the last thing we want, is throwaway infrastructure. While we recognize that it may ultimately cost a little bit more, to do this in two phases, kind of like this, having a little bit of redundancy there, it does provide the opportunity to get this industrial development online, as well as get development growing to the north. And so we can start seeing increment coming into the district so that we can begin to look at options for the completion of the remainder of the infrastructure, widening the roads, putting in the gravity lines, putting in another lift station, and so on and so forth. The water will be mostly taken care of by that point, but I believe that there are some pieces that would still need to be established, but that's kind of will be determined by the consultants as well as the engineering and water divisions. Do you have any questions?
Questions?
I do. What's the reason the transfer station's gonna be removed from the district? It seems like it makes sense to be in the city.
The county says no.
Probably not a good reason, but
It's the county's land. We're not going to try and force them through on it. There was some discussion about it, but it's just how it ended up at. I don't believe they saw really the benefits of coming into the city at this time. So.
and then if they aren't in and we end up with that little 50-foot strip, isn't that just a shoestring that
It was determined
round
no.
upon?
It was determined no.
No, the shoestring would be connecting those two pieces by Pleasant View. The
Just the
purpose
right of
of the 50-foot strip is to avoid the shoestringing issue.
Okay.
So if it was just connected by the right-of-way, such as Pleasant View, that would be the shoestring. Yeah.
What about the funding for the infrastructure, Copper Basin? They're assuming all that responsibility.
So Copper Basin, in their financial models, they are looking at interior infrastructure all being handled by, not being reimbursed by the URA. That the interior infrastructure to it. Granted, getting the water and sewer and certain frontage improvements probably along, Pleasant View and Prairie, because those are major corridors and associated with all the industrial and commercial that we would see in the surrounding area. I'm guessing that would they would probably be looking for potential reimbursement for those types of major infrastructure improvements, whatever is within that. Again, the majority of the infrastructure improvements, such as the force main and the water, is being set up for Project Drive as well as Copper Basin. The reduced costs associated with those, I think that we will be, seeking reimbursement for that infrastructure improvements. And it's probably, we don't know numbers yet, somewhere probably between $3 and $5 million, but we don't know, in order to get those online. I don't know those numbers right now. That's why we're having Welshcomer do it. So,
Okay, thank you.
yep.
So what were the reasons that the county did not want to participate?
I actually don't have those reasons. The person that had been, I'm not 100% sure. I know that John Cafferty was originally working with him on that.
The county doesn't want to own property that's within an urban rural district. That's the basic.
Well, yeah, okay.
So it's all because of you guys that they don't want to come.
Politics.
Mr. Chairman?
Thank you, Shelley.
I had a question for Bob. Bob, I'm just playing with some numbers here and looking at your cash flow. Is something, and I know you're working with scenario B and you're trying to come up with an alternative that would enable the transload facility to be developed and then the infrastructure north of a transload facility developed. Is 15 million a reasonable number for those improvements?
15 million just for those?
Just for those improvements, yes.
To be honest with you, I don't know. The numbers that they're kind of looking at to get them online is closer, well, we don't know where the numbers are going to land, but I think that the numbers for the water and sewer, to get those two online first, is actually more along the lines of like less than 5 is what we're aiming for.
Okay.
That's why we're looking at this pared down approach that, again, by doing that, it doesn't allow for, the properties to the south won't have infrastructure available to them yet.
I understand,
Yeah.
right.
But
I think that if we work with them closely and pare those down, I think that's reasonable because, once we get the transload facility built, there'll be a cash flow stream that would enable us to sell bonds.
Right.
And complete the infrastructure or reimburse the infrastructure over a 10 or 12-year period because the Fed has come out today and said they're going to keep rates low until 2023.
Okay.
So we could be looking at a 2.5% to 3.5% cost of borrowing.
Right.
And that would make, monthly payment or annual payments of something reasonable. So just,
Yeah. No, I agree with you. Any other questions on this? I do have a quick
Questions?
update on the downtown.
Okay, thank you very much for bringing
I
this
think
to us
Eric
today.
has a question.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh,
Eric?
I have a question for Bob. I believe you said that in the option that included installing the force main north to south, that the properties to the south would not be able to tap into that force main. Is that correct?
correct.
Why would that be? I don't understand the mechanics of a force main, so it's probably something related to that, correct?
It's something related to how a force main works, and I don't know those mechanics exactly how it works.
Would that then mean that there's a possibility for parallel mains going in, like a gravity main parallel to that?
Correct.
You have somewhat redundant?
Correct. It does create some kind of redundancy along that, is my understanding as to how it would be developed. We'll be able to do a smaller gravity line because of the force main, so that does reduce some of those costs. And the gravity line still will work to service some additional areas within the overall basin. So it does still serve it. I believe that's the route that they're going. Again, I don't have the details on that because they're still working on that. But that there is a very large sewer basin in the master plan for this area that covers stuff to the north. I believe that we're reworking some of that anyways, based on the fact that it was a kind of a pie in the sky type of idea. And we need to look at it as a how is it really feasible to have it developed? But it does take that into account, that some other development further to the north, outside of this district, would actually ultimately tap into that gravity line.
Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Anything else? Okay, thank you for being here and giving us an update for us.
Not a problem. You want a really quick little update on the city center?
Yeah, I guess.
Not on here. I just kind of wanted to let you know that we did open up that survey for the city center plan. We did get 165 responses, which is the most responses we've probably seen on any of our master plan updates in ever. We got a really broad base of people being involved in that. Approximately, it was evenly split between folks in their 30s and 40s, 50s and 60s, and 60s and above. It was nicely evenly split. So we got a really broad range there. 80% of the people that answered it live in the city. 20% of the people who answered it either work in the city or have family here or come to visit here. It really gave us a good understanding as to what they envision for the downtown. We're currently working with that, with those survey results with Welsh Comer. They're beginning to update the plan to reflect those, as well as working with staff to determine which improvements would be looked at for the downtown that might need to be changed on our city center project list, again, for the master plan. So that means that we're moving in the right direction in order to get to a point where we actually can begin or finish the feasibility study, as well as begin the urban renewal district plan for the city center. I'm going to be meeting with Matt Gillis on that in the coming week or so, as well as then getting back together with Olivia Metz, who's been working on the feasibility study. And that's kind of just a little update there. Just wanted to give you that. So,
Thank you very much.
thank you guys.
Thanks, Bob.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, he's shutting down there. When unfinished business, we have an action item with Pointe Partners. Diane?
Yes, we have an order of approval for Expo Parkway road improvements that are located out in the Center Point District. The submitted costs have been reviewed by Welsh Comer with a recommendation to reimburse $573,947.39. The order of approval has been reviewed by our legal counsel. Their original submission of $596,668.06 was reduced by $22,000 due to some things that were included in there that weren't in the plans that they had submitted, and so Welsh Comer removed those, and then their soft costs were in excess of our 12%, so that was, their soft costs were reduced. So they recommended payment of the $573,947.39.
Chairman, I would just state for the record that I reviewed the order of approval like the executive director just stated. However, I just reviewed the first letter that Welch Comer sent out analyzing this submittal. I didn't review evidently there's a new revised letter because the first letter was incorrect. I haven't reviewed the new letter yet, but it sounds like, based on what the executive director is stating, that everything's in line, so my review would still stand.
Okay.
And I apologize for that. Matt and Jack were including you in the correspondence with that, so I didn't realize that Pete did not have that final letter. But I did go and meet with Jack on Monday morning, no, Tuesday morning. I met with him down at Welsh Comer and went through everything step by step. In the original letter, they had kind of been confused with Expo Parkway and put some of the references towards Expo District. And so I talked to him about that, and he corrected all that. So, yeah.
Okay. So, Pete, you're basically saying you believe that the review or the subsequent letter that either you've received or is coming is not going to do any change to make any change to the request?
No. it sounds like
legitimacy.
we're just dealing with a little bit of soft costs, so it's a minor issue, and it sounds like they got the letter right the second time, so.
Okay.
And
Any
the
questions?
subsequent letter is the December 15th letter that we received?
That was in your packet.
Okay.
Yeah,
and-
that I
and the-
sent you on, I believe it was Wednesday afternoon.
Okay, yes, and that didn't change any of the engineering analysis that was previously done, because it basically, it was the Expo Parkway, but it was all within Center Point, so I can understand where they may have
Right.
Right,
made that confusion.
the first letter reviewed the submittal as if it was in the Expo District.
I see, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any other questions or comments? Eric, Christie? Okay, all right. Then we'd look for an opportunity to make a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I would move that we approve the order of approval and reimburse the proponent for $573,947.39.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Coles?
Aye.
Davis? Aye. Waltzell?
Aye.
Carstensen?
Aye.
Crosby?
Aye.
Fleshman?
Aye.
And Clemenson.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, motion approved. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is additional projects in East Post Falls District. Discussion item. Shelley, you're welcome to.
Good morning.
Good morning.
First, Merry Christmas. It's good to see everyone, even via Zoom. Today, I just have some projects. We did take these projects forward to council on Tuesday night to see if there was support for them to come to urban renewal for potential projects to be reimbursed out of the East Post Falls District. The letter that is included in the memo, there were a couple comments that I'll include today that council provided that mainly just changed the Highway 41 request. But I'll start with the the Saltese Way improvements. So what we're looking to do is improve from Cedar Street to Highway 41. That is within the East Post Falls district. A few years ago, we looked at having a district just on Saltese Way so that we could do improvements similar to what Coeur d'Alene was doing. There isn't enough undeveloped property on Saltese to create the increment to make that work, so that district did not take off. We had a joint meeting between the commission and council at the time. But this would take at least a portion of that area and improve it. For those who ever drive that area, there's only a limited path right in front of the rental place on the north side. On the south side, it's a lot of mud and dirt, so there's no pedestrian improvements. The road actually needs to be improved. So this would look at aesthetics, and it would look at road improvements and function and safety improvements to complete the street options from Cedar Street to Highway 41. When East Post Falls District was originally put in place, they did pay for the traffic signal at Cedar and Saltese. That used to be just a stop, a three-way stop there. And Urban Renewal did pay I think it was $350,000 at the time to install that
yeah.
signal. So this estimated cost is $1.7 million. When you look at our totals, it is more than the 4.5 to 5. We are looking to see if you guys want to see these improvements. Are they projects you want to see? And then it would come back to staff and we would look at what is the priority and also timing. Can we actually get these done in the time frame that would work before the district closes? So we believe we can. We believe these projects are all doable, but we kind of wanted to get the feel from the council and from the commission before we started putting real effort into design work. Highway 41, that one's actually a project that's occurring currently. So what is going on with that is ITD is paying for the majority of the improvements from Post Falls to Rathdrum. But there were improvements that the city was obligated to pay for. Within that was a traffic signals at 16th and Highway 41 and at pole line in Highway 41. Had the city gotten their impact fee program updated, we would have had funds to pay for those. Our impact fee still is not updated, and it's out right now for comment, and we're getting comments back from developers and builders and stuff. So it's out there virtually for folks to go out and comment on. But due to that fact that it's not updated, we're still trying to find the funds for those two traffic signals. So the 16th traffic signal is $329,043. And these are known costs that's in the agreement with ITD. And pole line is $229,908 for a total of $558,951. The request as it was written included the consideration of a west side path that was within the original scope of work for ITD to do. Because of the cost of the project, they pulled that pathway out almost towards the beginning of the completion of design. And council did not support or would have that as an extremely low priority. So I would say, looking at the cost of all the projects, just to remove that. So that 1.97 would go down to 558,000 on the request. Any questions on those first two? Sorry, I talk fast. Okay. The next one is Cecil and Poline. This is mainly, it's frontage.
I'm sorry, I did have one question. If Urban Renewal was able to undertake the stoplights, how would that impact the impact fees?
It wouldn't impact them at all because they're not within the impact fees. So those are going to have to come out of general fund. The city will have to find general fund taxpayer dollars to pay for those.
I see. So the discussion about the impact fees not being collected or would, is,
So we are updating our study right now. Within the new study, these items are included. That new study has not been adopted.
I see, okay,
So-
fine. Thank you for clarifying that, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Shelley, I have a question for you real quick.
Sure.
If you removed the cost for that west side pathway, what would the new estimated improvement cost be?
So for the two traffic signals, it's $558,951.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. The Cecil Pull Line is mainly safety improvements. It's frontage improvements. This is one I told the council I wish I would have went ahead and designed the map for, because what you have is you have two churches to the east of Cecil, and then you have the high school, and then west of the high school you have an elementary school. And so there's a lot of foot traffic in that area. It doesn't have, the intersections are not fully improved. There is a section that is actually county that we'd have to look at. That's why when I put these estimates in, these are rough estimates. They could change. It's potential, depending upon right-of-way and stuff, we may not be able to do some of the improvements on the southeast side of Cecil because that is within the county. It's a county subdivision there that's just east of the high school. So we would look at that. We'd like to have those completed just so you have the connection. But at this time, we were doing these real rough estimates, and so we haven't gone into actual design to look to see what we could do and not do with that. But it's primarily safety on this one. So I know the request that came in was, I believe, if I look back at the letter, was stimulate economic growth and job creation. This one is more of a safety issue than it is any kind of a stimulus for economic development or job creation. Any questions on that one? If not, Mullen Avenue at Cecil. This is part of that original project that was completed with East Post Falls. At the time, we didn't have the traffic that we have now, so it's a safety feature that's going to allow traffic to move through there safer and faster. For anyone who drives that area at lunchtime or at 5 o'clock at night, it's pretty congested. And so this would add a center island curbing and turn lanes near Walmart for safety improvements. It's a fairly small project, but it's a really highly needed and an easy project. I'd say probably top of the list for us would be that project. So the estimate for it is only $110,000, but it is definitely something that right now, if you drive that area, it's a needed improvement. The last request, and I think this went forward, Diane had seen it before, I know, maybe a couple, Jerry might have seen it, but we talked about the 12th Avenue lift station. So when we originally brought forward 12th Avenue lift station and EQ Basin and the Highway 41, they're not really gravity lines, they're not force mains, they're sewer lines of some sort. I used to call them twins or something, but anyways, we had agreed the city would use surcharges to fund the design of the lift station up to $535,000. What we can do is, if the agency would go back and agree to reimburse for that, is we can transfer that $535,000 to the force main itself, which is outside the scope of the urban renewal district, because surcharges are for both. And what that does is it reduces the time frame that we'll be collecting surcharges from that area. So you have the tech park up there, you have Hemmingson developing up there. I believe some of the Jacqueline's property is included within the surcharges. There's at least 3 development areas that are affected by the surcharges. If the force main was an item that was within the urban renewal district, they could get reimbursed for it because it lies outside, physically lies outside of the district. There's no ability for those developers to be reimbursed. It creates a little bit of an economic disadvantage for the developers to keep businesses up there because, for example, looking at Project Feather, I think the cost was around $500,000 in surcharges is what it would cost them to locate their facility at the tech park. If they were locating somewhere else, they wouldn't be paying that $500,000. They'd only be paying our normal sewer cap fees. And so there is a kind of an economic disadvantage for them because a force main was required to sewer that area as it was annexed. So when you annex a property, if you don't have adequate sewer, you have to put in certain improvements. A lot of times those improvements are on site or will be within the district. Force mains, because they go all the way down to the plant, typically aren't. Force mains, we don't have very many force mains. I think there's like 3 in the city. And so it's something, again, I know Pleasant View, we're talking about adding another force main, but it's something that is, you don't have a lot of them. They're very expensive. When this original project came forward, the estimated cost was about $7 million. Now we're looking at 11. Honestly, when we go to build it, it's probably going to be more. If it's not collected in surcharges or from urban renewal, basically that comes out of our wastewater ratepayers are paying for that. And so those increased fees that they get helps pay for these overage costs, because when the developer comes in, we have these estimated costs. We say, okay, you got to pay that difference. But if it comes in short, then it comes out of the ratepayers' pockets, which isn't necessarily relevant to this because you guys are within the scope of the estimated cost. I was just kind of letting you guys know exactly how it all works, because you come up with these estimates, and I think we see it time and time again. Every once in a while we get lucky, but typically it seems like the estimates, by the time you actually go to build it, it's 3, 4, 5 years old, and so the numbers are higher, especially in this last probably 3 years. A lot of the estimates are coming in higher on projects than what we've seen in the past. So sometimes you see 15%. We've seen as much as 70% increases on some items within a project. In fact, they just bid out a design cost for the Avista Park down on the river, and the original estimated budget was 2.1, and it came in at 4.3. So I mean, there's some crazy times out there right now when it comes to construction costs. So that our request on that one is just for you guys to evaluate whether or not you'd be willing to reimburse that $535 that the city originally agreed to, and the agency asked us to pay for out of surcharges. And that will, again, allow us to, I want you to know the city's not benefiting from this. The benefit is going to go to the developers. So where the difference would come from is the developers' surcharges coming in for the cost of that force main. Does that make sense?
So it'd be more desirable for the developers?
It's more
to-
desirable
yeah.
for the
Levels the
businesses
playing
locating up
field.
there. Which should hopefully help with economic development. One of the disadvantages that came out of Project Feather had nothing to do with this. It had to do with the fact Arizona has an opportunity zone where they're looking to locate. Our only opportunity zone is in this downtown area, which there's no place to locate a Project Feather. So, I mean, there are other things that can persuade a company to look elsewhere, but $500,000 in surcharges in addition to the normal cap fees is definitely something that causes concern for a business when they're looking at other states and other locations.
Just a clarification, though, it doesn't benefit necessarily the developer. It washes down to the ultimate user who's going to build an industrial property or a residential property.
Yes, let me clarify. So when the company decides to locate, they are the ones paying the cap fees and the surcharges, not the developer. So, and that would be, even if you looked at it as a residential home, let's say, when a residential home builds, the person paying the cap fees and the surcharges is the individual buying the home. So the developer develops the area, and then the builder comes in to build, and the person paying those fees is the end user. So the business would be the same way. That end user, the business, would pay those cap fees and surcharges.
Thank you.
So would it essentially kind of be like a local incentive, so that it isn't being passed on to the future property owner?
So it is the property owner, so the
Right, right,
business
right.
is the one that's going to get the benefit,
Right.
yes. So they aren't going to have to pay the surcharge.
Right, so it kind of gives us a competitive edge?
Yes.
Okay.
So if I could take that one step further, Shelley, then if the developer is getting the initial benefit of not having to pay the surcharge, Are they gonna pass that savings on to the purchasers of the property that's
Okay.
gonna develop
So
the
the
business?
developer does not pay the surcharge. The builder, not the builder either, sorry. The business owner, the property owner is going to be one paying the surcharge. When they apply for their building permit,
So that's when they pay.
that's when it gets paid.
Right.
So if Ace Hardware was building another facility and they were building it at the tech park, when Ace Hardware come in to get their building permit, they would pay the surcharge at that time. So it goes directly to the business.
Okay.
Yeah, it's not really an incentive, it's just removes an impediment.
Exactly. That's why JB's asking the question. I'm like, yes, but it's kind of almost the opposite. Right now, it's an impediment, and it removes that impediment sooner. I mean, there's still going to be some surcharges paid because
Right.
we've agreed with the developer to pay for those costs. So to let you know, we did also sign the annexation agreement Tuesday night with BGI for the tech park. And so they have started their marketing and began design of like Cecil Avenue. So that area will likely start seeing some inquiries. I've gotten a few inquiries from their their realtors that are representing them for a few businesses that are looking at the site. I also wanted to let you know that John Beecham or Andrew Arbini will do a presentation next month, just talking with you about the 2 sewer projects that we have going on Highway 41 that are paid for through urban renewal dollars. Currently, the lift station is going well. The sewer line going up Highway 41 is not going well, and so they want to provide an update. They did an update to council on the Highway 41 sewer line on Tuesday night, but there's been a lot of issues with the contractor and running into items that were unexpected, and so it's causing delay, causing extra costs, and we'll have to make some decisions soon on how we're going to proceed with that. So they'll give an update to the commission, letting them know what's going on with that project.
Okay. In the meantime, if I could, Shelley, were you finished with your,
Yes, I'm done.
the comments that came back from council on each of these different projects that you just briefed on? Could you give us a brief synopsis in writing on each
Sure.
one of them that targets each one of them? So now if we, and maybe prioritize, what is the priority of each of those 5 or 6 items? And what's the real cost on it in terms of, you know, if you're going to pare it down throughout the West Side Trail and so on like that, making those kind of adjustments? What are we getting down to in real terms? And
Okay, so the only thing that was cut was the West Side Trail, and the council did not prioritize projects, just to let you know.
It didn't.
But yeah, I can recap and put it in writing and send it to Diane.
we might be able to have a workshop prior to our January meeting where we could kind of work through this, talk through it a little bit, along with some other things. So
Sure, yeah.
thank you so much for doing that for us.
You're
Any
welcome.
other questions for Shelley?
I was gonna say, the other thing that we can do, I have like an economic development update that I provided to the Spokane Business Journal that next month I could bring to you, just kind of letting you know, Gynii talks in a lot of high levels and project names, but there's a lot of local businesses that have located over the last year in Post Falls, and we can provide that information to you guys, kind of letting you know what the activity's been. For us, there was never a delay. The pandemic never slowed down anything as far as building permits went for the year. And the continued interest in Post Falls, and I'm hearing from all the developers, in fact, I just talked to Nate Ballard yesterday, that that's the most activity out at Center Pointe he's seen in the time he's owned the property out there. So right now, there's a lot of interest, a lot of things going on, so.
Great.
Some things I can't tell you all the names, obviously, but there are some regular businesses and stuff, I have a list of them who have located in the last year. It doesn't include every coffee shop, I mean, it's more the larger kind of stuff that's going on, and just give you an idea of what's happening.
Okay. Very good. That'd be nice. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hey, Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Mr. Chairman, just a question for Pete, and I know he looked at this. In your opinion, the language in the existing East Post Falls plan accommodates each of these proposed improvements? Is that accurate?
Correct. I think when you read the 2002 plan in conjunction with the 2005 plan, the broad language in the 2005 plan mainly would allow for all of these projects.
They all fall within the public infrastructure anticipated to promote economic development.
Right. Traffic signalization specifically mentioned.
Good.
Street improvements. So yeah, the improvements to cell T's are actually referenced in the 2002 plan, so.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
When we do have a workshop so we can discuss this further, I want to make sure we have some discussion and reassurance that the dollars aren't necessarily, could be committed on under one of these projects, are not taken away from dollars that should be shared back with the taxing entities as opposed to one of the entities, just so we have a comfort zone that would be the case. In other words, if the city has a project, they're asking on this list for funding and from us, but if they had it funded before, and this would be replacing that requirement, and those dollars could be used for something else, so to speak, which in my mind gives it an unfair advantage, to the other taxing entities, as opposed to sharing in whatever was still there. If we closed it, and there'd be a substantial amount of money that would be shared with all of the taxing entities, and I think that we just have to be somewhat careful about or confident that we're not letting that kind of thing happen without knowing about it.
We can definitely discuss that at the workshop.
Yeah, I think that would be a good thing to add in there, so maybe look at a Tuesday, second week of January or something like that, but we can work on the timing. Are you going to be gone, Lynn?
No.
Soon? Okay. Okay, thank you. Any new business to,
No.
okay. Staff report, any other items on your staff report you've covered?
I was going to talk about City Center, and Bob updated you on the results of that survey. And then, just as Commissioner Crosby noted, that Anderson Brothers has finished up the majority of the audit, and I'll be working on the MD&A after I receive a draft of that.
Okay.
And I'll forward that on to the Finance Committee and the Treasurer, and hopefully we'll have it presented at the January meeting.
Very good. Okay. Any commissioner comments?
Chairman, I just want to thank Gynii and the city for the updates they gave us. And also, I looked at the survey results, and I think Bob was absolutely right. I think it was a great job on the survey. We got a much better response than we had ever gotten in prior surveys or even in public meetings. And we got some very thoughtful comments. And I think that, most of the comments support our consideration of a downtown district and provide some guidance. So I think that's exactly what we were looking for from the survey and from the public.
Very good. Thank you. Anyone else have any comments, commissioners?
Just Merry Christmas. To the new year. I hate to say it at my age, but I'll be glad to see this last year gone. You hate to give away any of it, so.
It's been a dumpster fire.
Yeah, for sure. Chairman comments, just thank all of you for the work you did this past year and the great job that you dedicate yourselves to when you get involved in these projects, and I appreciate that very much. And to Pete for his guidance, and certainly all of the heavy lifting that Diane does for us. And the staff back there on the TV set, thank you all for your audio and visual support, and Shelley for all what you do, blending the city with urban renewal, and appreciate that very much. It takes a team, like Gynii said, to make it happen. One or two people or one or two groups can't do it all. So thank you all for that. I also wish you a Merry Christmas and be safe as best you can, and look forward to seeing everybody in January. And we'll also be doing elections, I think, at the January meeting. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Moved, second, third. All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign. We are adjourned. Motion carried.